Hello and thank you for watching this back to school night video for geometry. My name is John Quigley. I joined Holy Child math department in 2006. Before that I'd been teaching in Ireland for more than a decade, teaching mathematics and physics. I had graduated from Trinity College Dublin in 1993 with a degree in math and physics, and then followed that by going to Northern Ireland where I studied for a master's in computers and information systems. Returned to Dublin and did my teaching qualification, secondary school teaching qualification, the HDIP in education, a few years after that. In terms of what we're going to do in a geometry course, I'm sure most of you remember the outline of it, at least from your own school days. Begin with an introduction to geometry where we're revising concepts that the students have already learned, the ideas that they would have brought with them from grade school and middle school, and that just need to be refreshed and maybe tightened up. So things like lines and line segments and rays and angles and angle measure. We'll also then start to move forward a little bit. We'll look at transformations, things like axial symmetry, coordinate symmetry, translations, reflections. We'll look at quadrilaterals, parallelograms, rhombuses, kites, squares and rectangles, obviously. We'll look at angle pair relationships, when angles that are formed when parallel lines are cut by a transversal, for instance. We'll do a big study of triangles, which will take up a lot of this course. At some point during the year we'll move on to trigonometry. The exact timing of that may depend on a few things, but certainly it will be part of this course. And we will look at circles, studies of circles, and studies of area and volume. Similarly, we will touch on as well the depth at which we address similarity. I guess will be a little bit time dependent. Difficult to predict how timing is going to work out this year. Moving to a new schedule, and then having this sort of funny start to the year that everybody is enduring at the moment. In terms of my classroom expectations, while we're working remotely, whether that's full remote as we have been up to this week, or whether we're in a remote context like we will be going forward for a little while at least, it looks like. When I'm teaching a class, I expect the students to stay on for the duration of the class. Students should be on the call for the duration of the class. But it's very difficult in this scenario where we're looking at where I'm looking at a computer screen and where everyone else is looking back at me. It's very difficult to predict or to assess just how well students are taking in the knowledge and learning the knowledge. I understand that this class is made up of freshmen and sophomores largely, and it can be, I'm a new teacher to all of them, they're new students to all of me. We haven't met in the flesh yet, so it's difficult to form that relationship, especially with the younger students. In any circumstances, in the best of circumstances, it's difficult for young students to ask questions, but this year, because communication is so key and because feedback is so limited, we're not seeing facial expressions, we're not seeing body language. Please encourage your daughters to interrupt and to interrupt me when I'm talking, and to say that they're having a problem, to say that they don't understand something, to tell me that they did their homework but they couldn't get the right answer, or that they weren't able to finish a particular question. We're reliant to a much greater extent, and it's one of the real difficulties about teaching this way. We're relying on a huge extent to the students bringing their difficulties to us, because it's harder for us just as teachers to see where we're not reaching them. So I guess that's the one thing I would ask you to take from tonight. Please encourage your daughters to speak and to interrupt, and to let teachers know where they're having any trouble. There will be in this class homework or study basically every night, either just practice or getting ready for quizzes and tests. Once students are in school, all that I ask is that they come with a willingness to learn. I don't expect them to be absolutely pumped and be full of adrenaline every day for everything they're likely to see in geometry, but I just want them to be willing to learn and to work with me, and we'll try and meet one another halfway and make progress and grow a little bit every day. In this class course, students obviously should be prepared for class. The things they need: a calculator, their Surface device, and I'll talk to that in a moment. But also in geometry, they need a compass and a protractor. So there are some constructions that students have to be able to do themselves on paper. I'm going to leave that until we have people back in class, physically back in class, because it's going to be a lot easier. It's very difficult to tell somebody how to manipulate a compass or a protractor when they're not actually in front of you. Again, it's important. Again, the communication thing is still important even when you're in front of me. Before small problems turn into big problems, just please encourage your daughters always to reach out and always to come and ask if it's possible to get some help. They'll get help from me, and I'd like to be their first protocol, but also from Mrs. Weldon in the maths lab is going to be a great help. And I know some of you have been to visit her already, some of your daughters. In terms of instruction and assessment, I put all my notes in OneNote. The girls do have an electronic textbook as well, but I do put all my notes on OneNote. I put them up there in advance so that the students can print them out before they begin class, and then take notes on the paper. They don't have to do it that way. If they like, if they're happy working on their OneNotes, if they're happy working on their Surface devices with their pen, then I'm absolutely fine with that as well. I think for the younger students, maybe it's easier to work on paper, so print the notes out in advance. I'm going to leave that up to you as a parent and each individual student. You know how your daughters learn, and obviously they'll get more comfortable as time goes by with the more exposure they have to working on the Surface. But if you feel that they'd be better served by printing off their work, then please do look at OneNote where the notes are already there. I use class time for explaining the different concepts that we're dealing with, for clarifying when students have questions, very importantly for working through examples, and as much as possible for giving practice time to students. That is the big challenge when we're doing remote learning, or at least another big challenge, monitoring the students' practice time. I'm going to use GeoGebra. I'm never quite sure how to pronounce that. It's a free online tool you can use through your browser. You can also download the app onto your phone as well. And it's a nice drawing package, geometric drawing package, that we'll use. And we'll use it to aid discovery learning, and allow students to discover and to reveal some of the principles of geometry for themselves rather than being taught it in a drier method. Assessment this year will be in 3 categories. Engagement will address how the students are prepared for class, whether they're here on time, whether they're turning in their work on time, whether they're in uniform, whether their camera is on when they're at home. Formative assessment, I guess, is traditionally quizzes, and summative assessment mainly going to be tests, and there will be these authentic assessments as well that will set up as the year goes on. Whenever students have a test, I will give them a practice test. I'll send a practice test out to them about a week in advance. I'll send a key out a few days later so that the students have a chance to do the practice themselves and then check their answers. The surest way for any student to be successful in math is to redo all the problems for which you had any questions. So if, for example, I give you a homework problem which you aren't able to get the right answer for, then you should make a note of that. Ask me to do it the next day that we meet in class, or meet outside of class for that matter, and then try that evening to work through the problem yourself. Okay? Work through it with my notes beside you if you like initially, but then work through it without any notes open. When you can do that, you've learned something. The concrete evidence that you've learned something. It'll also help your confidence an awful lot. And for me, it's the surest way to succeed at any level of math, the surest way to grow and to improve yourself as a mathematician. If you need to contact me, my free blocks are A, C, G, and H. They're kind of all over the map this year, but if you look online, you'll find a schedule online and get an idea of when those blocks tend to be. Certainly in the current climate, the best thing to do is to send me an email to set up an appointment. I can meet you for a Teams call. I can set that up online, and once we're able to meet in person, then it'd be great to meet you all in person as well. My email address is jquigley@holychild.org. I'm really looking forward to actually seeing the girls. It's been very difficult. It's been a little bit easier for the older classes because I know a lot of those girls by sight, or I've taught some of them before. This year really don't know the girls yet, and I'm really looking forward to having them in front of me in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully I will see you as well during the year. Thank you for watching this again, and please reach out if you have any questions or anything you want to follow up on. Okay, thank you.